Chapter 18. Yeshua often used the phrase, I and the Father are one. This has led to great misinterpretation. For, from the initiatory standpoint, it is simply another word for spirit, and these words Yeshua was indicating that he merged with his spirit, and that is how the miracles were accomplished. And so he would go back and forth between two ideas, which the Gospels report in their own limited way. On the one hand, Yeshua would sometimes say, I and the Father are one. At another times, he would say, without my Father, I can do nothing. This is the oscillation that occurs with the initiatory process, in which the initiate oscillates between the strength and conviction to his her connection to the spirit source, and then to the other state of mind in which they realize that they are nothing and can do nothing without spirit. So the one state of mind has a feeling of omnipotence, and the other state of mind has a feeling of impotence. And the initiate must pass between these two. That Yeshua used these phrases several times indicated to me, as a fellow initiate, that he was in the middle of this paradox, and he lived with this paradox in consciousness until the Garden of Gethsemane, and it was before his time in the garden, as reported by his disciples, that he came to me, and we practiced the four serpents for the last time. There was an initiatory intensity in our time together, for we both knew that the time was near at hand. With the explosive force released with the practice, Yeshua's car body scintillated with power and conviction, which he took with him into the final hours of his life, fortifying him for his journey through death. But the times before were often spent. I searched for the right word in a kind of self questioning. Those who follow Yeshua, who call themselves Christians, like to think that he was sure footed and always clear about his purpose and mission, and that he never wavered. But I, who spent the nights with him, tell you otherwise. Just because the being has attained a level of mastery does not mean that they are able to pass through uncertainty untouched. Yeshua felt the pressure of his celestial soul, but it is an odd thing being an initiate, for one is human with all that goes with it, and one is increasingly connected to and a part of one's celestial soul. It is the Ba, the celestial soul, that is the voice of God speaking. The high initiate acts like a reflex from the mouth of God, but just because the celestial soul is clear does not mean that the human is necessarily so. Yeshua saw in others the potential for God realization, and he spoke to these several times. One of these was mentioned in the Gospels when he said, You shall do greater things than me, for he understood that miracles are a nature expression of consciousness, and that as the consciousness of mankind expanded, miracles would be commonplace. And yet, at the same time, he was very aware of the limitations of those around him, of their addiction to hatred, ignorance, and bigotry. bigotry, and this troubled him deeply. We spent many evenings talking about this, and until a few days before Gethsemane, he was not sure if he could attain what was required to pass through the final initiation. I do not know the reason for the change in him, but a few days before the garden and our final initiatory act together through the four serpents, a deep sense of peace came over him, and he was sure in a way I have never seen him.